Grinders! Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. It's Tuesday, May 14th. And we'll be taking a look at the 12. This is a big slate tonight. 12-game MLB slate on DraftKings as well as FanDuel. Feel free to hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. You know how much we love and appreciate those thummy thumbs. Give me those thummy thumbs, even though Tim's not going to bother shaking his thumbs at you, but whatever. I'll make up for him. I'll overshake just so to get you to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to let you know anytime that we go live. Obviously, we'll have Grinders Live and Crunch Time later tonight. That'll go even deeper into the slate. We're just kind of taking a first look here. I got Tim BUELL. Hockey's still going. I haven't been paying attention, Tim. Is it? Oh, it's not going good for you? It's that hockey.
No.
Why is it not going good for you? Because obviously, if I'm not playing DFS, I don't really pay. I'm not paying attention to it.
Yeah, well, I'm not playing DFS.
Doing well, so that sounds. Yeah. I mean, I'm from New York, so that sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not playing DFS either, but I just had some series bets. I bet the Avalanche to win the Stanley Cup, and I bet the Avalanche to beat the Stars. I bet the Bruins.
Did the Avs lose that series?
They're going to. And one of their top players tested positive for drugs, so he's going to be out for forever. You know,
is that Devin Taze or whatever?
No, it wasn't Devin Taze. It was Nichushkin.
Oh, Valerie Nichushkin. But I saw something on Twitter about Taze also. Is he injured or something?
I don't think it was a suspension. I think it's just an injury. Okay. Yeah, but so it's not. They're down 3-1. And the Bruins are also down 3-1, so it's not looking good for me. Not looking good for me. But I can make more bets.
The Rangers, Tim, have the Rangers won a Stanley Cup since 1994?
I would guess not. I don't know the answer, but I'm pretty sure they have.
When's the last time?
They beat the Canucks in '94, I think.
Yeah, I guarantee you, I know everything about that series. When's the last time the Rangers won the Stanley Cup? When's the last time the Rangers won a cup? Yeah, I think 1994. So maybe I'm the good luck charm, right? Because the last time that I followed hockey significantly, like I was a partial Rangers season ticket holder, and that year in 1990, I went to the ticker tape parade in New York for the Rangers. I remember
you were an actual fan.
I was a fan when Matteau scored against the Devils in overtime, to go to the Stanley Cup. I mean, my friends. I mean, we were like 15 at the time. We were going nuts. We were out in the street. I actually made, Tim, back then. I made a pseudo paper mache Stanley Cup. So I used tin foil and wet newspaper, whatever, and I shaped and it was a big thing that I made. And when they won, we went out on the streets, and I was holding the big Stanley, and then people were driving down and honking, and then stop. There were people that would stop, get out of their car, and ask if they could take my paper and run around like we understand.
Right.
This I mean, you're 15. You're going to be out and doing that type of stuff.
I could see you doing that now, though.
No, I'm not going to do that now. No.
No, okay.
But the first year I play NHL DFS, maybe the Rangers win another Stanley Cup. So the last time that I was invested in hockey, the Rangers were good. So once I got invested into hockey again, the Rangers are good again.
Yeah, the Rangers are very good. They're very good.
Not the team that I remember. I mean, I'm from the Alexei Kovalev, Mike Gartner, Mike Richter goalie. Obviously Messier was the center, right? That era of the Rangers. Okay, so enough about hockey. Enough about people don't care about hockey anymore, right? We're not playing DFS for hockey. We're playing MLB DFS, and tonight, I think this slate is amazing. I don't know about you.
It's a good slate.
But
I think they knocked it down to an 11-game slate, Blender. Just so you know, they took that White Sox Nationals game due to the doubleheader right off of it. I got an email.
Okay. So this 9:45.
Yeah, that's not.
That's not on the slate.
I believe that's not on the slate, and I'm looking at this notification on DraftKings. The game between Washington and the White Sox is unusable due to the doubleheader. Players will not accrue
Ah,
points, so
okay. So
we got knocked down to 11. That game doesn't really matter anyway. That game's
right,
pretty terrible anyway.
yeah.
So yeah,
But to me, from an overview, it seems like a slate where I think you could go so many different places for bats, but the
yep.
pitch, I think, a lot clearer. Because if we take a look at the stack, I mean, I'll bring it up. If Steve could throw it up on the screen. Here's the bat stacks projection page, and obviously you get this if you're a bat subscriber. If you're a premium subscriber at RotoGrinders, we have a similar thing with the RG projections. But like, just if you sort by like point per dollar, and then you focus more on like the high end of like median points and ceiling, we have this whole group right here that's fairly close together. So he got like got the Tampa Bay, Arizona, Houston, Texas, Atlanta as the top projected stacks. But then we have all these teams that are maybe 4 or 5 points lower that are like the value stacks. Well, I'm not saying that that's great, but there's like a lot of ways that you could fit things together. But we'll talk about bats afterwards. Just checking the weather. Obviously, tune into crunch time. Toronto, Baltimore. I don't think that's even on the slate. Chicago.
That's not on this slate.
Okay, so I guess the Atlanta game is the only one that's of concern. Yellow. But
Yeah.
we'll act at yellow. We'll act as if like the game's playing, right? Typically, when it gets to like orange and red, then we can start talking about let's just leave it off the slate.
Right.
But from a pitching perspective, I mean, this projection on Dylan Cease is gnarly.
Yeah, I mean he's 6 points higher on both the bat projection and the RG projection. 6 points higher than the next closest pitcher. And his optimal rate is so high that I mean he's still my number one exposed pitcher when I ran Sims, which is pretty rare. Usually you don't get the most popular pitcher as also the top exposed pitcher in Sims, but it's just he's so over the top better than any other pitcher on the slate. So we could still make positive EV lineups with him in it because
right. I mean, the key concept there, Tim, that people don't seem to realize is that there's no such thing as chalk and not like good chalk, bad chalk. It's like, oh, this guy's going to be popular. Is it worth him being that popular? Like, it's not about like, well, he's going to be popular, so I'm not going to play it for leverage. It's like it has to do with over-owned and under-owned. And based on our Sims, we have Dylan Cease at projected to be 50% owned on what is functionally now an 11-game slate. Most people would look at that and go, well, if half the people are going to play Cease, well, I'll just play 2 other people. But based on our Sims, it's essentially saying that 50% owned is under-owned. Like he should.
Yeah, I'm getting 70, almost 75% of Cease.
Right, even at that ownership.
Right.
Because how rare is it where an 11K pitcher is underpriced for his projection? Because that's a peak Spencer Strider, Jacob deGrom level projection that when they would be like 12.5, right? Like that those types of prices. And like Chris Sale projects well also for 10K against Chicago with 20 points. And then it just like you get some of these 17s, 18s. And then obviously we have some value pitchers. But like if you're not going to play Cease and then like I'm not going to play Cease and not going to play Chris Sale, like the projection of your lineup, like you're going to be like 10 points behind like everyone else. And especially on the pitcher front, I'm much more likely, I don't know about you, Tim, because bats are much higher variance, meaning, on any day, Aaron Judge or Juan Soto or Mike Trout when he's healthy, obviously, those types of guys, I mean, they could get 0 points. That's well within their range of outcomes. 1 hit for 3 points. And some $2,500 batter could hit a solo home run and score 14. You don't get that as much at pitcher, right? I mean, it's
Right.
still high variance. All of this is high variance. But
Yeah.
if I'm going to sacrifice projection, if I'm going to play a lineup that's 10 points lower projected than other lineups in my contest, I'm going to do it by playing a different stack, right? I'm going to play one of these like cheap stacks that are low owned, and because it's correlated, if that team goes off and scores 8+ runs, like I'm good. I can make up those 10 points. It's hard to make up 10 median points by like, I'm going to play the chalk bats and then I'm going to play Sonny Gray plus Ronald Blanco. And it's like, well, you're giving up. I mean, those they're fine pitchers, right? I mean, they project from a raw point perspective right underneath those two, but like, why are you paying 10-5 for Sonny Gray for 500 more? You're getting 8 more points in median projection, even though the ownership's coming with it. I mean, RSIM says that you don't want to do it. So I know it's kind of weird to say on an 11-game slate. I'm the type of person tonight, I'm going to be building like 5 lineups, 6 lineups, something like that. Mid-stakes contests, 500 to 1,000 entry contests, where the ownership of Dylan Cease could end up being like 60 or 70% owned. I mean,
what's he going to be in the 121? Like 80?
I don't know. Well, the key is that I'm not even sure if it matters. Like,
oh no, I'm not saying. I'm not wondering if it matters. I'm just curious what you think.
No,
how high he gets.
To me, Tim, if you told me he was going to be 50% owned, I'm playing him. If you tell me he's 75% owned, I'm probably playing him. So it's like, unless you tell me he's like 90+% owned, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to rely on the fact that Cease doesn't do well enough, right? Doesn't mean he gets shelled, but just he doesn't do well enough that I can make it up elsewhere. It's hard for me. I don't know. I'm sure that if I ran, I mean, you actually ran SimLabs, but even if I just ran lineups in Lineup HQ, like, I just feel like I could get the same ownership in my lineups cumulatively and still have Dylan Cease in there and end up with like 5 more projected points on average and still be fun. Like, it's just so weird as people come here and think of me as like, oh, this great contrarian. And I'm like, oh, it's hard for me to not play Dylan Cease in every one of my lines, especially on DraftKings where you play 2 pitchers. Like FanDuel, I mean, you only have to play 1 pitcher, so you don't have to play Cease. But when you need to play 2, I mean, do you feel the same way that I like? Unless something happens 7 hours from now, or some lineup change or something. I mean, I'm just clicking on Dylan Cease against the Rockies at home in San Diego. I mean, like, how much better of a matchup? And I mean, Dylan Cease is one of the top pitchers in the league now. I mean, with all the injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to be really making a lot of teams before I got away from Cease, to be honest with you. Like, I'd probably have to, like, he'd probably be in my first 75, and then I'd have to like really question whether or not I would just want to lock him into a 150 set. But if I was you building 5 or 6, he would be in all 5 or 6. Like, no question. There's just no question about it. I
almost feel like if this game was in Colorado, I would still be playing him. Like, you understand, like his if this was Colorado, his projection would be like 22 instead of 26, and I'd still go, yeah, I'm probably playing him in most of my lineups also. And an 11K pitcher in Colorado, it's almost, you feel like I almost would rather that, because people tend to avoid those situations. But Colorado is like next level bad.
Yeah.
Like Colorado, it's gotten to the point where Colorado is so bad that when they play half their games at home. And even for DFS, their projections at home are not even on the top half of the slate, playing in that ballpark. Like, that's how, like, we've been used to Nolan Arenado on the Rockies. Those era of Rockies where it's a Coors game. The Rockies are bad, but they at least still have a 5.5, 5.7 implied run total. Like, this is a team that doesn't even reach like a 4.5 implied run total at home. And now they're playing in San Diego in a pitcher's ballpark. Their implied team total is 2.47.
I know.
I don't know if I've ever seen an implied team total that low. I mean,
Right.
seriously. I've seen high twos. I've seen 2.8s. I've seen stuff, but less than 2.5. I know I'm going to say, and I know we're praising the hills of Dylan Cease.
I was wondering,
our luck is
going
to come out and walk 3 and give up a 4-run, a grand slam in the first inning, and like everyone's lineup goes to shit.
So, Mr. Gerg in chat says, seems like everything has to go perfectly right for Cease to pay off an 11K price tag at extreme ownership. I mean,
but that's not you're missing the forest from the tree. I don't know, Tim. I don't know if you were going to chime in. I'm missing the forest from the trees. It does.
Yeah.
If Cease, let's say Cease scores 25 points, right? Probably at 50+% ownership at 11K. That's not paying it off, right? But you still have to play 2 pitchers that score like 25 points anyway. So I'm not going to play Dylan Cease at high ownership. I'm going to end up playing Carlos Rodon for 3,000 less against Minnesota and just hope he doesn't die. And if he does well, if you play other people, it's not just fate, because people think in terms of, I'm going to fade Cease, and if he only puts up 22, I'm good. Yeah, if you find 22 points from someone else, but you got all these other pitchers to choose from. Have fun trying to find, right? Try to find the pitcher that does well enough, or even the cheap guys. And like, well, I'm going to pay up and I'm going to stack the Braves. It's like, okay, so you have to hope that Michael Wacha does well enough, right? Some pitcher like that, and that the Atlanta Braves put up 10. I mean, right? If Dylan Cease comes out and gives gives more than half the field 38 points, like, you're in really bad shape now, because so many lineups have those points, that the opportunity cost is not that dramatic when the projection differences are so wide. Like, this would be so much different, Tim. Would you agree if Dylan Cease was projected for like 20 median?
There would actually be a discussion between 4 different pitchers.
Right.
But since he isn't, it really is no discussion. And what I would say regarding that question is, we run simulations and show how often these pitchers are optimal. And when I see a really, really high, a 36% optimal rate on Dylan Cease, it's definitely, I mean, that to me shows that I can still make positive EV lineups with the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. To me, it's about more of like the macro process. It's more about the math, So I mean, Cease is so clearly the dominant force on this slate. I think it's a mistake, and so if you lose, you lose. But Blender and I both come from poker backgrounds. Like, if you're putting it in good and you lose, so what? You put it in good, right? Like, that's part of the game. And I think fading Cease is a bad process play.
Because even in to me, the Sims, if we take a look at Sim Labs, just on the optimal rejected ownership, this is as of 10 in the morning. So remember, once lineups start coming out and ownership changes, this is all going to change. So like, we're just looking at it in a very early snapshot. You should be looking at Sim Labs much closer to lock. Obviously, if you're a premium member, you could get access to Sim Labs. It is what I use to build my candidate sets of lineups. And I typically will build, even playing 6 lineups, I'll build 150. I'll build 300 and weed them out from here. But based on this, it seems like Chris Sale is the one that's actually going to be overowned, that it's much better to play Sonny Gray than Chris Sale, because I don't know if you can play both of them, but if we take a look at the projections, like Chris Sale, obviously we have to see whether or not that game is going to play. It's, yellow on the weather report.
I think we should for the show just assume it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the difference in projection between Sale and Gray is about two and a half points. And it's a $500 difference. And the Sims, like, we have projected ownership of Sale at 25% and Gray at 15%. And our Sims say that probably should be flipped, right? So
Right.
it's weird to say that Dylan Cease projected to be 50% owned is under-owned, while Chris Sale at 25% owned is over-owned, because Chris Sale fits that mold of what we were talking about with if Cease was only projected for 20. It's like, well, Sale's projected for 20, but Gilbert's projected for 19.75, Blanco 17, Gray at 18. Like, there are other pitchers that are close enough projected to Sale that Sale, even though he is higher projected, shouldn't be that gap. Like, Sale shouldn't be twice as owned as Ronel Blanco or Sonny Gray or
Right.
Logan Gilbert or those types of guys. While Dylan Cease should be twice as owned as Chris Sale and should be 3 times as owned as the other guys. So to me, I don't know if you've looked at lineups, but you can play Cease and Sale together. But you are mixing in. You're going to the cheapie of the. You're playing that. This is old school vomit stack style, and I think that still is valid on this slate. Maybe I play one lineup that looks like that, but I think I'm much more likely to play Dylan Cease plus take a shot at one of these, like, anywhere from 5K to 7K, like cheap pitchers, and then build a much more balanced lineup. The problem is that you can't be all that confident with some of these. I mean, Joe Ross at 5,200. I don't like playing Joe Ross, but he's facing the Pirates, and that's enough for me at 5,200 to take a shot, because he could go out and he could throw. I mean, his strikeout prop is, sitting at 5.5. Of course, obviously the juice is on the under, but his strikeout prop isn't that far off from Logan Gilbert's, right? Right, Logan Gilbert.
No, and I think you really got to compare Joe Ross with Michael Wacha, because Michael Wacha is going to be like the popular cheapish pitcher at 6,800, already coming in with 20% ownership against the very, very, very strikeout heavy Mariners. So he's going to be your decision point when you're deciding if you want to punt pitcher or not. Or Joe Ross, I suppose. Joe Ross is coming in with 3% ownership versus Walker's close to 20.
But Walker's in the same boat also. Obviously, he's $1,600 more than Ross. Ross is real cheap nonsense, as Cheese would say, right? If you read the $1 Million Musings, like, Ross is true cheap nonsense. Walker is like not nonsense. He's cheap, and he has a similar enough prop line to Logan Gilbert, and Logan Gilbert is like, what, 2,500 more, right? Like, he has a bet. Wacha has a higher strikeout prop than Carlos Rodon, and Carlos Rodon is 8K, right? He has a similar prop to Reed Detmers or like Aaron Savali. Like, it feels like to me that some of these like 8K type pitchers are just like 1,000 too expensive. Like, it feels like if I was going to play any of those guys, I might as well just play Michael Wacha. And then you could think, depending on your stacks, hey, if a lot of people are going to play Michael Wacha, why don't I just play Joe Ross? Why don't I take a shot on Chris Paddock against the Yankees at like no ownership, and then just close my eyes and hope for the best? But that's what to me, that's what these guys. That's the key to winning some of these slates, of finding these like really cheap guys, and one of them puts up a 20+ point score, and it just opens up so much for your lineups that combined with Dylan Cease 17 trillion points that he's probably going to score today, that does it for you. But it does. I mean, even Michael Wacha at 6,800 against Seattle. I mean, that doesn't make me. I mean, do you feel good about you feel better about Michael Wacha than Joe Ross? But I mean, I'm never thrilled playing Michael Wacha.
Yeah, I mean, it does not thrill me. All I know is that, Seattle's projected to strike out almost 30% of the time with this projected lineup. So, yeah, I mean, I know that Waka doesn't have that high of a K rate, but I mean, there's just so many strikeouts in this Mariners lineup. But do I feel comfortable about it? Rostering Waka? The answer is definitely no. I never feel. I don't actually, honestly, don't remember the last time I clicked on Michael Waka. But he is definitely in heavy consideration today. It really depends on if I want to go like cheap with the A's or the Pirates in terms of cheap stacks and double pay up at pitching for Cease and Gray or Cease and Sale.
Are there any other pitchers that you'd be looking at before we take a look at stacks?
I mean, I don't know. I kind of think Ronald Blanco's interesting, but he might just be kind of. I mean, he's got a 6.5 K prop.
Well, I mean,
He's pretty
he's
decent,
facing the A's. I mean, that's what'll happen when
right?
he faces Oakland.
Right, I know. So, I mean, I think he's going to be one of those guys that are pretty forgotten. I think he'll get squeezed. We have him projected for 10% right now. So, I mean, he's already quite low. I think if I was playing like, in a 20 max, I might put him in 1 or 2 because I think he could hypothetically match guys like Gray and Sale just due to the matchup.
Right. Alan in chat is saying Detmers. I think Detmers is okay. Like it feels like Tim. It feels like to me that there are a couple of guys that are okay that I'm like, okay. Can I play Reed Detmers? Yeah, but like
I wouldn't in single entry though.
Well, I mean, if you want to play a Cease Detmers lineup, I mean, I think that's perfectly acceptable. If you're going to play kind of a chalky stack, I mean, I think that's fine. But it's just like for 22 pitchers on the slate, for me to basically look at this and go, maybe I'm only considering 5 pitchers. Like there are some slates where the same amount of games, and you're like, wow, you could play like 10 pitchers on the slate, and no one's going to be oversized ownership. And it's just like, play whoever you want, play whoever you like out of this group. It's like kind of clear. Like, these are the pitchers. You're probably not at the bottom. You're not playing Nick Pivetta on a pitch count. You're not playing. I mean, it's just like Savali. Like Savali on another slate would be like okay, but I mean, Savali.
I love pitching Hunter Green even in smaller contests, smaller field contests than single entry, but. The Diamondbacks
hates Hunter Green. Just realize.
Yeah, and the Diamondbacks don't strike out really,
right.
So that takes away Green's biggest threat is his strikeout percentage. Like he's wide, he's very very wild, and he's got a high K rate. But Arizona's not going to be chasing, so it's a really bad matchup for Green. So I would just really leave it to Blanco. I don't know. I don't really like Gilbert that much. I think it's just Cease. I would narrow it down to I think 6 pitchers: Cease, Gray, Sale, Blanco, and Waka. I think that'd be it for me.
Looking at stacks, I'm looking at the bat stacks projection page. And in a rarity, like the Dodgers, you would think, the Dodgers against Keaton win. That seems good. Like, yeah, they project. I mean, I think they're like the 3rd highest projected stack. But I mean, from a point per dollar perspective, they're awful because, most of their key players are absurdly expensive. I think that'll lower their ownership. Still has it around 4 or 5% total owned. But the top stacks, according to the bat, are teams like the Rays against Pivetta, the Diamondbacks against Green, the Astros against Sears, the Texas Rangers against Lively, and the Braves against Tyon. And then you get down to like the Yankees, the Padres, and the Dodgers, who project well but are also much more expensive. if you had to choose between, I mean, I just feel on the slate that do you think any stack is chalk? Like, if, like, what stack would, like, if I would have just asked you, what stack do you think would be the highest owned? Would you be able to even tell me what that would be? Like, you could pick out a handful of teams, but it's not like, oh yeah, people are just going to play. Like, yeah, the Braves are obviously going to be the highest owned. It's like I'm not too sure. I mean,
I don't think the Braves will be. I don't
genuinely
think the Braves will be number one because I think a lot of people are going to double pay up at pitching. So how are you going to play Braves when you have Cease and Sonny Gray? You know,
So then what?
you
People are
can't.
going to what? Who are they going to play if they're double playing up at pitching? I mean, what are you playing? You're playing the Cardinals. You're playing the Giants. You're playing
The
I mean,
Pirates.
like what? The Pirates?
Y-
I could see. You know what? I could see the Pirates going not over on. I'm just saying higher on than we expect.
I think they'll be higher on than we expect. I mean, the Oakland A's were super steamed yesterday in single entry. I was like, I knew they'd be popular. I didn't think they'd be that popular. Luckily, they did enough that I still won. But I mean, they got ultra steamed. So I wouldn't be shocked if, and of course, recency bias. The Pirates went absolutely insane last night. So you know, you might see some people wanting to punt with the Pirates. But yeah, like looking at this slate, imagining people will play Cease, maybe Cease and Waka.
You
I
could fit the
mean,
Braves. I mean, Jags fan is saying Braves are too expensive. It's like, I'm not saying you have to play Acuna, Albies, Olby, Olsen. Like maybe you don't play all four of those guys, but you could play the Braves and still play Cease. You can't play Cease and Sale and play pretty much like the Braves, but I mean, you could play if Arcia bats fifth at shortstop at 3,500, and you have Aldi Albies at second base for 5,300. I mean, there are enough cheap outfielders on the slate as one-offs or something that you don't have to fill your outfield spots with Braves. Like you could fit that in. I mean, for the total 4.67 in a vacuum, you're right, but there's so many teams that have I mean, there's just so many teams that have around a 5 total, but not more than that. Like it's a lot of teams like that. Like the Brewers, 4.69 total. Like I could see I mean, dude, the Brewers are brutal. The Brewers have become like the Twins, like from last year. Like, dude, don't even consider like these guys like Frelick, right? Terang less so because he's playing second base, so he's less likely to be pinch hit because the lack of a fielder replacement. But like like what's gonna happen is that Frelick, Bowers, these types of guys, like they project well against righties, and then you check in on the fifth inning and you go, what happened to them? Like they disappeared. They turned into right-handed bats, and you're like, I feel like I got screwed out of 2 plate appearances. But I mean, the Brewers project well. I mean, I just feel like at this stage, what's the difference between the Braves and the Astros? Right? You could throw in a Singleton in your lineup, right? Like he's cheap, and you could build an Astro stack. The Rangers, right? You could throw in a Duran or a Jankowski, maybe not Jankowski because he's a lefty. But they're similarly priced. I don't know what people are going to attract to. I mean, I'm the type of person that would want to play the Diamondbacks against Hunter Green because he's a high variance pitcher. But Hunter Green, I don't think is going to be owned. It's kind of weird.
yeah,
I said Joe Ross before that the bat loves Joe Ross today against the Pirates.
mm-hmm.
If enough people play, if you told me going into the slate, where is he? Where the Pirates? If you told me that Joe Ross was actually going to be double-digit owned, I'd want to play the Pirates against him. But if that's not going to happen, I almost feel like I'd rather just take a shot on Joe Ross. The Pirates have a 3.81 implied team total. I don't know. Am I selling myself on playing Joe Ross? More so because 5,200 at pitcher, like it opens, even with Cease, it opens yourself up. I mean, you could do, I mean, I'm doing Braves plus Dodgers. Like, no, you can't do that.
Right.
It feels like it just opens up so much more. Would you rather, Tim, play the teams that have higher team totals and play a Cease Walker lineup? Maybe you have to throw in a value piece of those stacks. So you're playing good teams, but you got to throw in the 3K guy or something in those teams. Or would you rather do the old school, my old school vomit stack style of, here we go, I got Cease and Sale in my lineup, double barrel, right? And then like, okay, Cardinals, let's see what you can do for me. Let's go Oakland. It feels like
I'm going to be looking.
Like the slate's so big that I don't want to rely on teams that have like under 4 team totals.
Right. I get what you're saying. I think I'll be looking at ownership later in the day, and if the vomit stacks aren't getting steamed, I'm probably going to go double barrel because I don't want to have my night hanging on Joe Ross or Michael Walker. So
are you scared? Wait, you're going to play scared, Tim?
I am. Well, I mean, but it depends on ownership. I mean,
right.
Like imagine if Joe Ross gets steamed, I don't think you should play him, right? It's the same idea, and if he's projecting really well in the bat, he's going to get to be probably way overowned,
depending on how many people use the bat. Because you're looking at the RG projections. I mean, what's the difference between the Ross projection between the two? It can't be that dramatic.
We have him for 13.45.
Okay, so that, I mean, 13.45, and the bat has him at 15. I mean, like a 1.5 point difference.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like when we say, the bat loves Joe Ross, right? Like the RotoGrinders projections like Joe Ross also. I mean, like, just not.
Which is going to just steam him up even more.
You're right. I wouldn't want to play Joe Ross at 20% ownership. You're right. I agree with you. But I just think people I think will feel much more comfortable clicking on Michael Walker. Like the single entry stuff, like you're talking about the 121, the single entry stuff, even the people that do massively multiple entry typically will either play their highest projected lineup or they will hand build a lineup themselves. I don't see hand builders, those Cretan, those cavemen. I don't see the cavemen Cretan hand builders clicking on Joe Ross. Because that you look at that, it's like, that the guy that we normally stack against. What am I doing, right? Like what? Typically we're not playing bats against Walker, right? It's not like you could, but it's typically not. It's like, okay, he's a good enough pitcher. But maybe you're right. I think that's going to matter so much. But to me, that's the key of like what's your lineup construction, what your stack's going to look like, because you say, Tim, right? Here, I'm going to throw it back at you, Mr. Scaredy Cat. You don't want to have to rely on your slate. You want to rely on Joe Ross for your slate. Do you want to rely on the St. Louis Cardinals against Reed Detmers for your slate?
That's a really, really, really good point. But I mean, like I said, I would rely on Joe Ross for the slate if he was going to be low owned, which I don't think he's going to be.
Okay, but okay, so take out the ownership part, and it just be that taking a shot on a cheap pitcher. So it's just like instead of double barreling pitcher, you're going high and going low, and then maybe there's 5 guys, and you like feel they're all going to be similarly on. Pick one, pick whatever they are, but you know that these are the types of pitchers where this may end up being a -4. This could be whatever. But like 5 spots of your like when you play Cease plus Sale, like 5 spots of your lineup are going to be like, let's take a look. Let's take I don't even know what.
Well, it's going to be Dylan Carlson, which is disgusting. He's 2,100. That's like horrible. Lars Nootbaar is decent.
You got Cease and Sale, and your stack is Carlson, Nootbaar, Herrera, Mason Wynn, and Nolan Gorman.
Yeah, it's a tough scene.
I don't know about you. I feel much more comfortable taking cheap nonsense. I feel more. This is how bad I think the Cardinals are.
Mm-hmm.
I feel much better playing Keaton Wynn against the Dodgers in my pitching spot, just so I could at least play bats that feel like I could that that have a ceiling. And of course,
who are your premium stacks?
All the teams that I mentioned. I think the Braves, the Astros,
yep,
the Diamondbacks.
The usual suspects.
Right, the usual suspects. Right, the Dodgers are overpriced, but I don't think they're going to be very owned. Right, so I mean, you got these teams. The Padres are probably overpriced. I mean, the Padres just, dude. Do the Padres ever work? Do they ever work out? Do the Padres ever? You look at their lineup and you go, "Oh, okay. What the Padres are going to be 3% owned? Oh, I'm going to play the Padres." And then they put up like 3 runs, and you go like, "What against some garbage pitcher?" And like, what is going on with the goddamn Padres?
They've got to be in Kirkwood's #1 gutless rankings for offenses. I mean, they're I don't know what their deal is. They never seem to like really live up to their really solid potential. I mean, Kim is projected to be in the 9-hole. Kim is not a 9-hole hitter on most teams. Like,
right,
this is a pretty strong lineup, and they just don't seem to put up the runs.
But on this slate, you got the Texas Rangers. I think that's a premium stack. The Yankees against Paddock.
That's who I was looking at, actually. Yeah,
I mean,
I like that.
To me, I like playing the Yankees as like a 3-man. Like, I'll play another stack and then take 3 power hitters from the Yankees. So it feels like to me, Yankees, I don't know, they hit up a lot of home runs or they strike out a lot, right?
Yeah, I also like to play the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, which unfortunately is not this evening. So yeah, because like Aaron Judge can just hit like a lazy fly ball to right field and it's a home run. So yeah, but I did kind of like the Yankees against Paddock.
I like the Brewers against Quinn Priester, but only the righties. Like, it's just, yeah, except for Yelich. Like, Yelich won't come out. Like, Yelich won't be pinch hit for. But Yelich is also at 5,500. Is a bit rich for Christian Yelich these days.
I don't want to pay 5,800 for Contreras either, though.
Right, but we also have the Tampa Bay Rays against Pivetta, right? That's a more of a mid-price stack. I mean, you have to look out for those lefties also, but like, you could play like, I mean, Arozarena's down to 4,600. Right, some of these guys, you play Royfight, the cheap catcher. Yeah, the only problem with the Rays is that it's like half their players are outfield only, or like outfield eligible.
That's a good point.
Right, it's hard to like Caballero at the bottom of the lineup at shortstop. But to me, like, I named 6 teams, and none of them are going to be like super owned. They're not going to be low owned, but they're not like, no one's sitting here going like, I got to play this, I got to play that. It's like, oh, here's this bunch, and people are going to play 5% of each of these, and then you're like, I'm going to play Cease Sale and a team with a 1.2 implied run total with little league hitters, in a bad ballpark with a good pitch. Like, I just feel that you may only need one of those pitchers. Like one of those pitchers is going to only put up 20 points, and there's going to be like 8 other pitchers on the slate that put up somewhere around 20 points for much cheaper. You may not know which ones they are. That's the scary part. Right. But something's going to happen like that where you're sitting there. What time is this game? What time? At 9:38 p.m. Eastern, sweating out Ivan Herrera at bats and the corpse of Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, because those guys are not good anymore. Like, they're the best hitters on this team, but they have fallen off a cliff quite dramatically. And then the thing is, Tim, you're going to do that, and when Dylan Carlson hits the leadoff home run on the first pitch of the game in the 121, like, he's going to be 23% owned anyway as a one-off.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm getting to like 30. I'm getting to 32% Cardinals and Sims, which is like terrifying, and by far the number one stack in Sims, which is like makes me a little bit nervous that they're going to get steamed even higher later. So
That's why
I don't
you
know.
play Detmers as Leverett. You play that's the Cease Detmers lineup, right?
Yep.
Because how
Yeah.
owned is Detmers going to be in that contest if the Cardinals are going to be the cheap stack that is going to get steamed to no end?
Yeah. It's going to be under 5%.
So which one do you feel more comfortable with? I'm trying to sell you on the fact that this double barrel pitcher thing isn't as cracked up as it could be. Like if this was a smaller slate, I'd be much more inclined to be on your side because there's only so many. Like if this was a 5-game slate with Dylan Cease on it and the Cardinals on it, it's like, well, where else am I'm gonna like Dylan Cease could put up 40 points and you ain't gonna. There's not gonna be someone else that does that, right? You're not even gonna be close. And then on a 5-game slate, maybe none of the teams go off, right? It's a 5-game slate where the highest run the team scores is 6 runs. And if like the Cardinals put up 3 runs at these cheap prices and you double barrel pitcher, I think you could win. But on an 11-game slate, I just like one of these premium teams. Someone's going to score 10, 12 runs. Someone's going to do something like that. And unless you think it's the Cardinals, or unless you think that Cease and Sale together are going to put up like 70 points combined,
Which they're not going to do. We don't have pitchers like that anymore. We don't have the DeGroms and the Scherzers in their prime, in his prime, or Verlander in his prime. We don't have pitchers like that anymore.
Yeah, but you want to do the lineup that pretends as Dylan Cease and Chris Sale.
Right.
Like if you told me it was Spencer Strider and Jacob deGrom,
right,
I'd be like, yeah, maybe I could get 2 complete game shutouts. I mean, like in these matchups that they have, like if this wasn't Dylan Cease, if this was deGrom, like the projection would be like a median projection would be 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spencer Strider is, I mean, like Dylan Cease, we're treating as a Superman on this slate. And Dylan Cease, if all these pitchers were actually healthy, like Dylan Cease probably wouldn't even be a top 10 pitcher in the majors, right?
He definitely wouldn't crack the top 5. He wouldn't be anywhere close to top 5.
So you still haven't answered the question. Are you that confident in your double barrel Cardinals lineup, or are you going to embrace? Are you going to embrace the butt clenching of a Joe Ross pitching performance?
I would have to really look and see if there was a premium stack that I really liked tonight to go your route, and right now I'm not seeing it. So that's
I don't think you are going to see it, Tim. I think
right, but that's the counter to your argument is that so you're paying down at one pitcher spot to get to X team. What is this X team?
But it's going to be Tim. It's going to be one of them. That's not you're coming from your attitude is if I can't be sure out of these 6 teams who to play, then screw it. I don't want to play any of them. Like I look at it as, well, there are 6 teams that have a legitimate shot at 10 runs. And because there are 6 of them, one of them is probably going to do it. I don't know which one, but I might as well have that instead of, Alec Burleson in my lineups. I mean, like that's
so in your 5 or 6 lineups, you're going to go all Cease, pay down at SB2, and then fit in one of each of those.
Why not?
Premium set. No, I'm just
right. I could do that. I could have 1 Diamondbacks lineup, 1 Diamondbacks lineup, 1 Astros lineup, 1 Rangers lineup, 1 Yankees lineup, 1 Braves lineup, 1 Rays lineup. There you go, 6. There you go. You mix and match them. And then try to avoid Dylan Carlson as a one-off.
Definitely avoid Dylan Carlson as a one-off.
I mean, assuming that he bats first. I mean, dude, I don't even know if it matters when he. I mean, he's 2,100, right? If Dylan Carlson was batting 8th, I still think he would be owned, right? I mean, maybe not as owned, but
yeah, he'd still get some ownership,
right?
I'm wondering where the Guardians are going to come in against Jack Leiter.
Who wants to play the Guardians?
I don't know. I know that I know that they don't hit home runs, but they do have some pretty good batters in the middle of that lineup.
Maybe you could enlighten me because I didn't play.
Well, I mean, you obviously know, like, I think Tyler Freeman is completely fine at 3,400, and he's going to be 3% owned versus Dylan Carlson, who's going to be like 25% owned. Jimenez is probably too.
Can you tell me what a Kyle Manzardo is?
I cannot tell you what a Kyle Manzardo is, but I am going to be looking into him because he is 2,200. So I am going to, but at the end of this day, I'm going to know what a Kyle Manzardo is. Currently, I don't know.
Are you going to be on Crunch Time or Grinders Live later today?
Yeah, it's the People's Show, 5:00 Eastern, Grinders Live. Me,
why is it
Bobby, and Dean.
Show?
That's the People's Show. Yep.
Is it only when you're on, or is that just? It's always the People's Show. It's the People's Show when Bobby's on with you. Is that
when Bobby, Dean, and I are on a show? It's called the People's Show.
Oh, okay.
Because me and Bobby are for the people. Me and Bobby are for the people, and Dean just tags along.
So Dean isn't for the people. I thought
no. Dean's a huge company man, so he's not for the people. He wants everything behind the paywall.
Oh, so that's why people hate when it's me and Dean, because
probably
I guess I'm a company man also.
Probably. Yep.
I'm probably I'm probably the most company man. I'm the only one that goes, hey, I use all these tools myself, and I would do much better if you just didn't and just played badly. So please don't sign up for RotoGrinders Premium and make these prop lines move quicker than they already do, because you're using the same projections that I'm doing, right? So I'm probably, if anything, I'm even less for the people than Dean.
Yeah, so well, that's why we don't have you sub in if we need a sub. We don't call you.
Because in the morning when I do the shows when we have an early slate with Dean, those are that's why Dean loves those shows, because those shows he actually gets to be for the people.
That's right.
I'll bring it next time. I'll bring it up to him. I'll let him know that he's perfectly okay to simp for the people in the morning. I will allow it, just only because he doesn't get to do that later in the day at 5:00. Okay, so hit that thumbs up button. I'm the only time I care about the people, Tim, is when they hit the thumbs up button. So if you're for the people, I'm for the people that hit the like button. That's my concession. I see how many people watch this. It's nowhere close to the amount of likes that we have. So the people that are liked, I'm for you guys. Everyone else can go screw themselves, right? Come here and just leech onto free content. Don't sign up for RotoGrinders Premium by clicking the link on the description. We got plenty of deals going on. $250 off for a 6-month combo premium. We got all the stuff here. If you don't do either of those things, if you're not hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, hitting the notification bell, if you're not signed for RotoGrinders Premium or the props and pick'em package, or even retweeting the RotoGrinders account on Twitter, or joining the Discord, which a lot of the channels are free, rotogrinders.com/Discord. So you have all these conditions, Tim, right? If you've done all those things, I'm for you. If you've done none of those things, then screw off. Get out of here. Get out of here. I don't care about you. Let Dean care about you people, the cheapos and the freebies, the freeloaders and the leeches.
The freeloaders? You're anti-freeloading?
As long you have to do something, right? Like hit the like button. Like, okay, fine. At least you've shown that you're not a freeloader, right? What are we just gonna come here and go, what are the plays? And then we're gonna show the screen that shows that Dylan Cease has a projection that's 100 points higher than anyone else. These are the freeloaders, Tim, are the first people that, after you show them all the stuff that's behind the paywall, and then Dylan Cease goes out and gives up a grand slam in the first inning, they're the first ones in your DMs that are like, what a call on Cease, right? And it's like, dude, he's 70% owned, and like everyone projected him for, like, it doesn't mean that it's gonna actually happen. Like, it's like that's why it's probabilities. Those are those people, right? The non-freeloaders, they get it. They get what the range of outcomes can be. So those are the cool people. Those are the cool people that can tune into Crunch Time and Grinders Live later today. By that time, Tim will figure out what a Kyle Manzardo is and tell you all about it. If you're a premium member, obviously read Dave Potts Cheese's $1 Million Musings. That should be up soon if it's not up already. Tomorrow, I believe I got Will on. And yeah, we're continuing with the MLB season. Good slate tonight. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow, like I always am here, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props, and pick 'em on RotoGrinders Today.